Welcome to Level Up Tribes. Level Up Tribes provides resources to help you attain the necessary resources to level up your mind, body, and soul and realize your full potential. It is about exploring, learning, providing you with the tools from the experts for you to create a better version of yourself. I am your host, Agnes Goodwine, and welcome, Tribes.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. It's very clear.
Excellent. Thank you very much, because I've been having trouble with this microphone all day.
You've done other interviews today?
Oh yeah. I've had 4 today. I had 4 podcast recordings of my own, then another 2. Then just because I'm going on tour in the States in 2 weeks. So organizing everything, tying everything down, the shows, everything. Wow, what a day. And it was not a good day for the microphone not to go well.
Oh, well, it sounds great. Hopefully, I don't have any problems on my end. How's the sound?
You sound lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Can you pick up background noise?
Just a little bit.
Okay, well, let me figure that out. It's just at the moment, because it's Ireland, it's family time, there's kids in the house. It's very, very hard to keep everyone quiet for things like this. So let me just go and encourage them
Okay.
just to be a little bit more quiet. Thank you. Okay, I think that might have worked.
So, what time is it over there?
It is 6:30 p.m.
Oh, wow.
We're 8 hours in front of you. And then to make it more confusing, our clock goes back tomorrow.
How many hours back?
1. We go back an hour tomorrow, which is odd.
Yeah. In Arizona, the time never changes.
Yeah, you're so lucky. It is the worst thing ever. The clock going back and going forward, I mean, it is terrible. Like,
It is.
our clock goes back in October and it goes forward in March. So the way you remember it is fall back, spring forward.
Yes. So, Jude, do you know, like, what's the story behind the change of time? I really don't know why they do that.
I have no idea. It's like somebody thought, how can we most unsettle Jude Morrow? And this could have this could have been centuries ago, where someone, prophesized my existence and thought, there will be an autistic author called Jude Morrow, and his biggest pet peeve will be the clock going back and going forward. Let's think of something that will really throw him off.
I love that.
That's all I've got. I don't know the origin of it. Where apparently it's something to do with farming. Don't know why.
Yeah.
No idea. I can't even guess.
Yeah. So is it cold in Ireland at this time, or?
It's cold all the time. Like, you may think of it as the Emerald Isle, but it's more like the Grey Isle. Where it's very, very cold here. It's very cold. It's very wet. It rains 300 days a year here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's why everybody goes to pubs, because they're inside.
That's why. Finally. Okay, now I know why.
That's the reason.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on Level Up Tribes podcast. I have your book, and I have to say I was a little nervous about doing this interview, and I've done several, but this is a topic that I don't know too much about, and I have to be honest with you and transparent. So I'm learning today along with the audience and the listeners. So let me give you a proper introduction before we get started. So Jude Morrow is an autistic best-selling author, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and keynote speaker from Derry, Northern Ireland. Jude travels the world to showcase through his talks that autistic children can grow up to live happy and successful lives. Jude is the founder of Neurodiversity Training International, the world's premier autistic-led training and consultancy firm to global nonprofits and Fortune 500 companies. Jude is also a 2-time TEDx speaker and nurtures parents, teachers, and professionals to develop a kinder mindset toward autistic people, young and old. His first book, Why Does Daddy Always Look Sad?, was published in 2019. And today we will be talking about his latest book, released this year, I believe in September, Loving Your Place on the Spectrum. You've had quite the journey in the last 2 years since writing your two books.
I really have. And whenever you put it like that, like whenever you just read out like the intro bio, I was like, wow. I
Oh,
mean, I was like, is that me? That's like, is that a sort of like a hint of imposter syndrome kicking in? I don't know, but it's been, yeah, it's been, I suppose, a well documented journey over the last maybe 2, 3 years. But I mean, it's been a real journey for the past 31 years from when I was born right up until now. But it's exciting. It's fun. There's different twists and turns and ups and downs and smiles and
yeah.
frowns every day. So it's fun. I enjoy it.
Okay. What do you do for self-care? Because everything is going so fast, moving so fast. What is your tools to kind of ground yourself?
Well, there's a couple of things that I have as far as self-care, because I mean I work a very busy job running the consultancy firm, writing books, speaking in places. I do a lot of travel, and I suppose trying to make as much family time available as possible is one thing, where I have that's like the main one. That's number one. But then I have a couple of other things. Number one is that I am a complete out and proud, unapologetic gamer. I am a gamer, and I don't apologize for it. I'm an avid reader. I like watching sports. I like stillness. Sometimes I like being on my own. I don't really know what boredom is that I always find something to do. My brain always finds a way to occupy itself. And I suppose it's just having that time to just be around no one. It's nice.
Yes.
Like
So, yes.
loneliness isn't something I know a lot about. I don't know what loneliness is. I don't see a disadvantage of it. Not right now. Maybe when I'm a bit older and a bit more vulnerable, I
Yeah.
might find loneliness a bit worse. But at the moment, I kind of don't. Solo time, kind of regeneration, like charge the batteries.
I'm super excited that our listeners are going to learn about your story. So, can you share with us, your journey? Start from the beginning if you can, the short version of it. I know you've said your story many times in different platforms, but just for our listeners here at Level Up Tribes.
Well, my story started the 7th of August, 1990. That's when I was born. I was born in Derry in the northwest of Ireland. Pretty standard Irish Catholic nuclear family. One mum, one dad, one older sister, Emily, who's older than me, one dog, one picket white fence. And autism wasn't really a word that was discussed in the mid 90s. And of course, my older sister was the yardstick to which my development was measured against. And
Mm.
didn't really say an awful lot of words when I was young, didn't really walk around. And now it's funny that, 30 odd years later, that nobody can get me to sit down or shut up. And I was among the first wave of kids in the mid 1990s to go to a mainstream school. Now, if I was born in 1980 instead of 1990, the chances are I would have had to go to a special education setting, where across the world there were more kids like me being able to go to mainstream. And I knew pretty early on that I wasn't really quite like everybody, where I often found myself having to bow and submit to other people's comfort levels and
Mm.
sacrifice my own, where I knew that I wasn't quite like everybody, because whenever people say autism or the A word, it almost generates a different reaction
Yeah.
toward you, where it definitely generated a different reaction toward me. And that was mostly negative. Now, it was positive front facing, because everybody wanted to do everything they could to help me to fit in air quotes, which really was kind of worse. It's almost like if two kids were standing by the side of the pool and one couldn't swim, where one would say, sure, just jump in and swim, you'll be fine. And I grew up through school, didn't have an awful lot of friends. I had a lot of fake friends and didn't really mix very well. So I came to 18, biology did its thing. I'd lived for 18 years and I was about to finish school. I was about to become a legal adult. Like, I
Mm.
mean, adulting alert. Like, I mean, a car driving, lottery ticket buying adult, where I would have to move out of my parents' house and stuff. So I needed a career. So I thought, what's a career for people that don't tend to be very good with people? And there's a lot of stereotypes when it comes to autistic people getting into careers, like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics careers, but they weren't my bag, they weren't my gig. So I thought, what's a job for people that aren't very good with people? And I thought, I've got it. I'm going to become a social worker, and I did. And that's a job, and that's a job I did for 8 years, 9 years.
Oh, wow. That's a long
Yeah,
time.
it was. Yeah. And I worked in various different fields, elder care, I
Mm.
worked palliative care, dabbled in a bit of fostering and adoption early on. But then my life sort of changed in 2013 when my son Ethan was born. Yes, I know autistic kids can grow up, not only grow up, but have kids too. And Ethan was born, and I suppose all of the past caught up with me quite quickly when he was
Yeah.
born, where I had a lot of scars from my childhood that deeply affected me as an adult, so much so that Ethan could see them. And then he asked my mother, "Why does Daddy always look so sad?"
Mm.
Which is me, which was about me. And I suppose that was the moment where I had to, I suppose, come to terms and make peace with the fact that I was autistic. And that's what the book became. The Why Does Daddy Always Look So Sad book became. And it's not a spoiler, I don't die at the end. And that was the start of the journey, really. That's kind of a condensed down. That's as short as I can condense it down without, while it's giving it as much justice as possible.
Yes. So, like, what made you write the book? Like, what was the inspiration to write? Well, I'm pretty sure Ethan was your inspiration in writing your first book. I want to go back. I want to know, like, when you found out, well, so you started dating, right? So you started dating in college or high school, or how did you meet your,
College, I did, yeah. I did. And then
how was that experience, like dating in college? And were you transparent with letting, people know?
early on, no. I suppose it sort of came out rather soon afterward. But then I did start to be a bit more open about it, where I didn't talk about it a lot. It was just like a footnote. I didn't go into any big explanations, because even 8 or 9 years ago, it was still something that I was so ashamed of, being autistic. This is the worst thing ever. Like, all you need to do is Google the A word and you get all the negative
Yeah.
stereotypes and everything.
Yes.
And for me, as being part of that community, I read things online and think, that's not me. I don't want to be part of that.
Right. Right.
Where that I didn't really broadcast it openly like I do now. Like, if someone had to said to me 10 years ago, "You know what, Jude, in this day 10 years time, you will be speaking to Agnes on a podcast that will be listened to by loads and loads of people," I would have laughed and thought, "Ha, that's ridiculous. That will never happen." So it's been quite a turnaround.
You're funny.
Thank you. I know, believe it or not, we can be funny too. Where people think we don't get jokes, we lack social nuances and things like that. Where, yeah, we can be quite funny, we can be quite humorous and entertaining. I like to have a bit of a light-hearted feel, okay?
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, despite what the media say, I don't take myself terribly seriously. No, and the reason for that is I just laugh when I can, and I think people learn more, and I think people engage more when there's a bit more upbeat. Because I mean, being on the motivational circuit, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I do like corporate gigs and everything like that, there's normally a flavor that comes with a generic motivational speaker. Okay, and here's the three things. Number one is crappy circumstances. Okay, number two is how one overcame said crappy circumstances. And number three is, look how wonderful I am now, and I've now made it into a program. Right? That's the general feel. And I want to break the mold a bit, where because I mean, whenever you hear so many speakers, they all sound the same. So I like to kind of have like witty anecdotes and a different, like a short, snappy, punchy, kind of entertaining kind of vibe.
It's interesting you say that. I do have another interview later this afternoon, and he's going to talk to the audience about how to become a motivational speaker, how to speak in public. And now you just gave us kind of like a little bit of the base of what it takes to do that.
Yeah, like that is the base. And don't get me wrong, that's still a base I use, but I like to add a bit more kind of herbs, spices, humor, fun, laughter, other things kind of tied in.
I watched your TEDx talk on YouTube. Excellent work. How was that experience for you? Like,
it was surreal. It was so surreal, because I like to have that effect. Like, at the start of my TEDx talk, I just talk about how much I like mustard. And I like bewilderment in an audience, where whenever I start to speak, like even if it's for an hour, and people are like this, like they're raising a brow, or they're like, where is this going? I like that. That's it. That's exactly what I'm going for. I like to look at people and for them to think, where is this going? That's what I like to do. But I mean, it's a massive honor to give a TEDx talk. And not only that, is that I'm one of a select few to have done two. So I've got two under the belt. The other one's a non-spoken one where I didn't say anything. I only said the introduction at the start and I just used like Bob Dylan cards.
That was different.
It was different. It's something new. It's something new. And the TEDx experience is something, if anybody gets the chance to do it, grab it with both hands, just dive in there, because I loved every second of it, where it just went by in a flash. It really did.
Jude, what is the process to do that? Like, do you have to submit an application?
Well, yes, you do. You have to, because there's TED events everywhere, and I would say to anybody that's even listening to this, look it up. Like, it's on their website, and you can apply. And it just so happened that there was an event near to where I live, so I thought, I'm going to apply for this. And the main thing about a TED Talk is that it's not really about one's accomplishments; it's about one's idea that they can spread with the world.
Yes.
Where, I mean, it's a lot of people think, whenever they apply for a TED Talk, oh, I'm a coach and I have billions of clients and I've automated everything and I live on a private island and I light my cigars off my Google shares. That's not what they want. What they want is they want a real, tangible idea that people can instantly action and use and take away, where you need to have an idea worth spreading. And I would encourage everybody to try it once.
Awesome. I wanted to get back to the book. It was released in September, right, of this year. What kind of feedback have you received from parents?
The feedback has been so unbelievable so far. I couldn't believe how good it would be. I'm really surprised and humbled at how many people were able to read Loving Your Place in the Spectrum and really resonate with it, because it's very different from the first book, where the first book is basically my own memoir, my life. And I came to writing book two, and I had run out of life to write about, because I've only been alive for 31 years. So I'll need to wait another maybe 31 before I write another memoir type book. And whenever the first book came out, I just kind of going back to your earlier question is kind of, what made you want to write the first book? And it ties into the second question, I promise, right? Where I would love to say, I would just love to do the really, really well pitched, slick marketed answer and say, I wrote it to inspire autistic people all over the world. Because that's not the answer. Where I've always been a prolific reader. Okay. Anytime I go anywhere, I like bookshops. I like the smell of bookshops. I like the feel of them. I like the look of them. And I just like being there. They are my happy retail place, where I love books. I collect books, first edition books. I mean, I always go in to see what I can find. And I always wanted to write my own book. And I didn't know whether that was going to be fiction or whatever. And I just so happened to come across a lot of old notebooks and diaries that I'd written in years prior. And I thought, I'm going to make this into a book. And that's what that became. And it just took off. It was so scary. It was because I had no expectations of it. I was working full time as a social worker, doing some training and consultancy here and there on the side. And then all of a sudden, people were asking me into their schools. People were asking me to speak at corporate dinners. People were asking me to go nice, exotic places, which is fun. And I wanted to, I suppose, answer a lot of autism's most frequently, that's easy for me to say. I wanted to answer autism's frequently asked questions from the point of view of me, an autistic person. And then I wanted to have a collection of some other essays and short stories and snippets from other autistic people as well to join in the conversation, where most of the narrative that exists out there about us is mostly formed by parents and professionals. And whilst there's a place for parental and professional opinion, I think that the lived experience, the autistic narrative, should be the strongest. So that's basically what Loving Your Place in the Spectrum became, because there's so many questions that people want to know. So I thought, I want to give my side and offer other people the chance to give their side as well. And that's really what it's become. It's nearly like it's nearly like a book that can be summed up in one sentence. With the right attitude, everything will be fine.
I love it. One thing that stood out to me in the beginning of the book is the neurodiversity. Can you touch on that and expand on what that means?
It's neurodiversity isn't just a concept that captures autism. It captures a lot of things: ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and many, many other things, where neurodiversity is a new perspective when it comes to those of us who are different. Because the lay of the land is now is the majority of people in the world get to decide who's disordered in comparison to them. And what neurodiversity is that it's an underlying understanding that people are different, is that there's variations in brains in the human population. People have different neurotypes. Like for me, my neurotype is the autistic neurotype, and it should be accepted and understood rather than pathologized and cured, where the neurodiversity paradigm doesn't see being autistic as a disorder as such. It sees it as a difference that should be accommodated wherever necessary. So neurodiversity is a more accepting and welcoming concept rather than outdated, like medicalized concepts. So it's like a new and exciting social construct.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that when I was reading that, it gave me some self-awareness just from a professional standpoint on the hiring process. So I'm reading that, and then I started thinking, like, how does our HR department handle this? You know, are we open to learning more about this, topic? And so it just got me thinking, about it. When you go talk to a corporate company, and what does that look like? What is that process like?
So typically, whenever people get in touch with me, I mean, with NTI, with my firm, I mean, we're doing stuff all over the world. Okay, every continent: Australia, India, the US, even the South Pole. Now that's a long story. That's for another show. So what it looks like really is people would get me in. Now it's impossible to capture neurodiversity in a 1 hour corporate gig. It is absolutely impossible. So I tend to kind of come in and do like the introductory part of it and say, well, look, it's part of the package where I speak to everybody, because there's no point me just doing an introduction and walking out the door. Okay, because ultimately what I want to oversee is real diversity, equity, and inclusion breathed into the company. And we do that in a fun way, where we look at different hiring policies, we look at how to attract, recruit, and retain the right talent. Where, I mean, if you think about it, some of the most gifted and talented people ever to have lived were almost certainly autistic or had a different neurotype. Where almost as society has progressed forward, it's like attitudes have gone backward. And I'll explain to you what I mean. I mean, if Albert Einstein was born today, and I do this in nearly every interview I do. So at the recording of this interview, the 29th of October, 2021, if Einstein was born today, Einstein probably wouldn't have got a job. And because he would have spent his entire life being told, now, little Albert, you need to stop worrying about space, time, and the nature of reality. Where we would have no photoelectric effect, we would have no general relativity, we would have no communications like we have now due to Einstein's theorem. We wouldn't have it. We're kind of getting that ethos into the company that different people have different ways and different talents, where the recruitment process across the world is so oppressive. Where, I mean, don't get me wrong, for like media interviews like this, I'm reasonably well versed. I mean, this conversation is totally different than if you met me on the street, where I would be, I suppose, the stereotypically awkward autistic man. I probably would be, but it's just that I'm so well versed and I've practiced this 100 times. Now, with interviews, you get one shot, you get one go at it, and it's such an artificial situation where what happens is that people who often sell themselves the best often get the job, because people just aren't hired on merit. So that's the tools that I want to give to HR and recruitment providers all over the world, is to actually hire people on merit, with alternative methods. And that's what is going to raise the figure of 16% of autistic people worldwide in full-time paid employment. That is terribly low. So only 16 out of every 100 autistic people are in full-time paid employment. I'm in a minority of that. There's so many out there, and I've even written about it in Love and Your Place in the Spectrum. People with multiple degrees, multiple qualifications, multiple life experiences, but yet just can't do the artificial, fake, rear kissy type of interview. And it's very sad. It's very tragic.
It is. It is. That's deep. We can have a whole interview on this topic alone.
We could. I do weeks and weeks and weeks worth of seminars and training with corporates on this topic. So that's exactly what I do. It's so flawed. I mean,
It is.
if you really sit and look about it and think about it for any longer than 15 or 20 minutes, you will feel your head start to hurt because it's like, this is such a huge problem. How come we didn't know about this?
Yes. Well, at least we have you, to
And various others.
yeah.
And I love what I do. I mean, there's a lot of us who are very proud of what we do and who we are. And what our ultimate goal is to leave the world in a better kind of state than we came into it. So yeah. That's my goal. I would love to see that 16 number increase in my lifetime.
Do you have other members on your team when you go out and speak to these corporate companies, or is it just you?
Well, a lot of the time it is just me. I mean, there are other NTI team members who do bits and pieces here and there, where it depends, because it's very, very bespoke. Like, we don't have like a generic, in air quotes, program where every firm that we work with, whether they're a startup, whether they're a medium-sized enterprise, or a publicly traded company, where their training needs are going to be different, their attitudes are going to be different. There's going to be some companies that are more progressive than others. So it's always very, very tailor-made. So sometimes they need the whole squad. Sometimes it's just me.
You mentioned in another interview that I was listening to that it stuck with me, and I was like, oh, it touched my heart. You said that you believe that autistic people are the enlightened ones. And that just like, because I've heard that from another person too. And when you said it, I'm like, yes. Can you elaborate on that statement?
I think we're the enlightened ones, because if you look back at history, okay, I know we touched on Einstein, and look, I'm again, apologies, because everybody quotes Einstein. Einstein is the trendiest person in the world to quote. Where if you look through the annals of history, some of the most intelligent, bright-minded, and creative people in the world have either certainly been or almost certainly were autistic. Okay, where if you look back, the likes of Steve Jobs, Marie Curie, Mozart, Beethoven, Daryl Hannah, there's so many. There's so many. But yet, then the big injustice that's bestowed upon us is that we're the ones with the disorder. I mean, it's just not right. Where what I believe autistic people are, no matter what level of ability, is that we have been the subsection of society that has driven the rest forward. Where if it weren't for us, the chances are the human race would probably still be living in caves and spearing fish and communicating through various grunts as opposed to actual speech. Where autistic innovation has made the world go round and will continue to make the world go round, but yet we're the ones that aren't often thanked and are still oppressed. And people still, even maybe listening to this, will think in their mind that autistic people need cured or eradicated. Where if that were to happen, if someone pressed a button and eradicated every autistic person from the planet in one press, the human race would probably only survive maybe another 30 or 40 years. I would say at a push. Wow. At a push. That's what I think, because there would be no further advancement. Yes. This would be it. So that's why I call us the enlightened ones, and we are the enlightened ones. I stand by that. That's a hill I'd happily die.
Do you think that there is a propaganda? I don't know. What's your take on that?
Oh, without getting. How long do you have? Because I mean, a warning. This could be another hour. This could be like a 3-hour special.
I know, but I was just, I was scared to even ask that. I felt like
I'll compress it. No, you know what? And the best thing about it is that I never want anybody to be afraid to ask me anything. I will always, I would say I'm one of the diplomatic ones. Okay, because there are, and it's sad to say, and it's sad to see, and it's sad to read about that, there can be, like, I suppose, like a lot of advocates, there can be some advocates that are more pushy, vocal, and angrier than others.
Yeah.
Whereas a very special person close to me in my network says, always work with people with honey, not vinegar. And when listening to this, she'll smile because she'll know who she is. Where, for me, the global opinion about autism and autistic people doesn't always come from the medical profession. It comes from marketing companies, where basically this is how most marketing works. Now, with all our clients that we do, because I mean, it's not just training and advocacy and speaking I do. I mean, really, what I do is I work with like startups and nonprofits and coaching businesses to really grow and kind of scale their businesses. So marketing is something that we do in-house a lot for a lot of people. And a really dark and scary form of marketing is creating a problem, is generating fear, and then all of a sudden then coming up with a solution to the fear, where I don't need to give the prime example of where that's happening all over the world right now and has been for the last 18 months. But that is what has happened, where this is a problem. Oh, wait, here we have the solution. And that's happened as far as the autistic community has gone, where there have been overzealous marketing companies and I'm sorry to say, medical professionals as well, that believe that autistic kids, young, old, whatever, no matter what level of ability, always need some form of therapy support. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there are plenty of autistic people out there who will need a lot more support than I do. And there's people out there that I need more support than, where it's all different, but the fear generated among parents is always the same, where the kind of pathway for autistic kids around the world, it's more prevalent in America, it's not so prevalent in Europe or in other places where there's universal healthcare. It is basically evaluations for autism, diagnosis given, then 40 hours of therapy must be achieved for your child to have any form of independence, which is absolute BS. Okay, which is not the truth, where these are all various therapies, don't need to say them out loud, and they're therapies that are often prescribed to autistic kids in for-profit healthcare systems that are very costly, that aren't available on publicly funded healthcare plans, where there's a lot of fear out there, there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's a lot of myths and misnomers, and parents are often afraid. Parents have a good nature. They want what's best for their child and children. And who best to advise what's best for children than medical professionals? But sadly, a lot can still be misinformed and feel that we somehow need cured or we need fixed. And I mean, if I can save your listeners thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars here and now on this episode, the real answer is understanding, patience, and having a strengths-based, where always, whenever kids are going through the evaluation process, it's always, well, your kid can't do this, or your kid can't do that, or your kid doesn't do that. Okay? Get rid of those things and celebrate what they can do, not what they can't do in comparison to the, in air quotes, normal kids. Because for me, as someone that wouldn't be in along with the normal kids, I think, thank God I'm not with the normal kids. I love the way I am. I wish I had have accepted it and appreciated it much sooner in life and didn't have to wait until I was 25 and made a ton of mistakes.
Well said.
Thank you.
You said a lot there. Mic drop.
Mic drop. That's it. Thank you. My name's Jude Morrow. Goodbye.
I love it. So I did wanted to ask you about the school system. And have you reached out to, or maybe the teachers have reached out to you about ways to change the way we teach our kids in the school system? Has that been a topic at all?
Oh, of course it has. I've done loads of teacher training, loads and loads and loads of teacher training. I've delivered so many sessions to so many schools. And the fundamental problem in any education system is that kids often are taught in one way, where there's one way and everybody just has to fit into it. Okay. And for some kids in that classroom, that's just not going to work. Where some kids may have very high levels of intellect, may have very, very good learning skills, but the learning style in which the kids are taught just doesn't suit them. And it can be very, very hard, where basically there's one method of teaching, and then that's just it. Where even to give an example, now I don't need glasses yet, and you're wearing glasses. Where if we did a ban on glasses, it's exactly the same thing. Where if I were to say to you right now, for the remainder of this interview, can you please take your glasses off?
I couldn't be able to see you.
Yeah, and it would save you having to look at my face for the next however long the episode's going to last. Okay? but that's what's happening to autistic kids. They're being set up to fail in the school system, and then schools, they always have the same excuses. Where, oh, we don't have the resources, we don't have the power, we don't have the staff, and everything else. And again, here's my message to every school in the world. Okay, patience costs nothing. Praising kids for what they're good at costs nothing. Spending a bit of extra time with a child that might be struggling, that may not learn in the same way that other kids learn, costs nothing. You are a teacher, you are a school, you have to cater to everyone in your classroom. And yes, whilst that may be a bit of a challenge, that's what your role is, to help people as much as you can. And you don't need millions and millions and millions of dollars and pounds and euros worth of resources to replace impatience, because all of those dollars are not a remedy for impatience, and it's sad because it's with teachers, everyone gets into that profession because they have an inherent good nature.
Yeah.
Although there's a culture, I think, in some schools of impatience. And I think that's what we need to lift, because whenever kids have their strengths played to, and that's used as a kind of a seed to blossom a relationship, then that's how it works. Like, it's so simple, but yet so many people don't do it. And what I hope is, if schools adopted this kind of ideology, this strengths-based approach, and not having to, outsource, millions of dollars a year to, basically because there's impatience, then I would say that would be my time to retire, exit stage left, and job done. But I can't say that.
Yeah.
I'd love to, but I can't say it.
What is your call to action? What do we need to do to keep forwarding your message?
My call to action is don't be afraid, okay? Do not be afraid of the A word. Do not be afraid of autism or autistic. Now, yes, I know a couple of things. Now, let's just get them out of the way. Yes, I do have the luxury of being able to advocate for myself in the media. Yes, I do have the luxury of being able to live a reasonably normal-ish kind of life as per societal standards. And no, I don't have any intellectual disabilities. However, everyone has strengths, everyone has talents, everyone, most importantly, has feelings. Where the main basis of building a relationship is common ground. So in order to remove your fear of autism and autistic people themselves, is to play to their strengths and stick to what they're good at. Okay. Now, another thing is that if you're a parent and you're listening to this and you're thinking, I think my child may be autistic. Okay. Let me tell you this. I have traveled very far, very wide, and spoken to, I would dare say, hundreds of thousands of people at this point. And I have never, ever met any parent who has believed themselves even, or their kids, to be autistic and being wrong. So if that saves you $15,000 or so worth of evaluation fees, then fantastic. Then my message has worked, because a lot of people think, oh, we need to go down, get an evaluation, get it off our insurance, then have to do tons and tons of hours of therapy and whatever else that may not even be needed anyway. It's just remove that fear. The main issue affecting the autistic community on the whole, which ties everything together, is unconscious negative bias. And unless that unconscious negative bias goes, our situation, circumstances, and I suppose quality of life won't ever improve.
Another mic drop.
Bam. That's a couple in this interview.
I know.
I know. Mic drops everywhere. Can you interview me every week?
Yes, we can do this. I love it. I know that you love to read. So I'm curious, before we wrap up our interview today, what are you currently reading?
I am reading The Abominable by Dan Simmons. I am a huge, huge Dan Simmons fan. I'm a Dan Simmons fanboy. Dan Simmons novels. He wrote The Terror, which was made into a television series by AMC. Very well worth a watch. I would recommend it to everybody. I normally read a couple of things at a time. Where I'm reading The Abominable, normally I have a couple of books on the go, right? I love reading fiction books, which is that's Dan's book. Hi Dan. Hopefully if you're listening, hi, I'm a big fan. I'm also reading this is a bit of an embarrassing one, where I'm actually reading the Voyages to the Arctic Circle under the command of Captain Sir George back in the years 1833, 1834, and 1835. And the reason for that is it's research for my next book, which is a fiction book. So which is about like the North Pole and stuff like that. Little girl decides to walk up there in the 1850s. So I'm doing a bit of research on that. And I also love autobiographies. I don't have a good autobiography at the moment that I'm reading. So normally I don't stop. Any spare second I get to read, it's like an addiction. It's like if I have a Zoom call, it's like if I have a Zoom call that somebody cancels or something, it's like, yes, I can read for 53 minutes until my next meeting. So I love that. I always love to read, and I can't wait to kind of go to airports again and go into airport bookshops. It's my happy place.
Love it. Is there a children's book in the future for you?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, there is. There is. There are plans for a children's book. Now, obviously, we're here, plug, loving your place in the spectrum. Yes,
I know.
Lots of questions, but the third book is a young adult novel where it would be okay for kids to read it.
Okay. I
think the new one, where the kind of walking to the North Pole one, which is really fun. It's like a full-length novel, but it's sort of geared toward a younger audience, but it's still read like an adult novel.
Like a fantasy novel, like Harry Potter?
It's more like historical fiction.
Okay.
I just decided that I would get like every genre and every kind of area of interest that I like, and I would put it into a fiction book and see what I came out with. And what I came out with was a little girl from Staten Island who in 1859 decides to leave home and try and walk to the North Pole.
Oh my God, that sounds interesting.
It's fun. It's very fun. You'll enjoy it.
Yes. Well, I've enjoyed this one. I learned so much. I've been, I have to be honest here. I've been in a bubble as it pertains to the autistic community. And so I'm super glad that you wrote this book. I'm super glad that we've connected. I'm following you now and just continue to learn, right? So I can be an advocate for you in the community, at my workplace. So I'm honored to have had, this opportunity with you. So I wanted to ask you, what's next for you besides your books that are upcoming?
And by the way, I've been so happy to be here. I mean, as far as advocates, allies, support, I mean, I appreciate and love every last one. And I suppose the kind of writing journey for Loving Your Place in the Spectrum is really like a love letter to the autistic community. That's what it is. It's like, I'm here, I'm proud to be here. And I hope that there's something in there for absolutely everybody. That it's basically what I want that book to be is to be the first thing that people read whenever the A word is mentioned to them, either by a professional or a family member or something, to kind of get into a more positive space rather than the negative one. And it's available everywhere, bookshops, the online ones. So read, give me a review, and my door is always open on social media. I have the most open social media ever. I still manage my own, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah?
So if people ask questions, they can, it will be me answering them. So I look forward to that. And what is next for me? That is a really, really good question, because There's things I want to be next for me. But what often I want to be next for me, it doesn't work out that way. Where I'm away on tour in the States now in 2 weeks. 2 weeks today, I'll be leaving. Wow. I just the reality just hit me right here live on air, where that will be 2 weeks. And then after that, some more trips around the world in the new year, where eventually I hope with NTI, if we get to the level where neurodiversity is accepted around the world by everybody, then we're in a good place. That's the title, where basically what I want to do is I want to have neurodiversity blasted so far out into the world that I basically make my own firm obsolete, because everybody's more accepting and understanding of us.
Where are you going in the state? What city or town are you going to?
Well, I have a bit of a spread. I have Washington, I have New York, Pittsburgh, Franklin, which is where I've got a couple of gigs up there, which I'm really looking forward to. I have a couple of gigs. I have one at Clarion University. I have one at Rocky Grove High School, all between the 10th and the 20th of November, and more like publicity stuff will be going out about that over the next couple of weeks. So if you happen to find yourself around the East Coast around those times, yeah, call me or give me a message, turn up. And yeah, I'll be glad to meet you.
Well, hopefully you'll make it to the West Coast of United States, Arizona, where it's nice and warm, California.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully all of the West Coast will be maybe, I'm hoping February or March, but maybe more April. So I will be going back over to the West Coast. So, I mean, just keep an eye on the old socials, and whenever I'm in town, I will let you know. And it's the same with Arizona. And this is funny because people will attest to this, where normally it's like a socially polite thing to do whenever you say to someone, oh, if you're ever in if you're ever in New Jersey, sure, hit me up and we'll go for lunch. Is if you say that to me, I will remember it. And I will text you. Where normally it's polite. It's like even in Seattle. I'm in Seattle now, or I'm in Dallas. Remember you said to me in a podcast like 2 years ago, if I was ever in Dallas to hit you up. Well, this is me hitting you up. Come on, your coffee's getting cold.
Well,
so I will do it. So,
well, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. If you're ever in Phoenix, Arizona, we'll definitely have to do coffee. Definitely visit a bookstore and see what we can find.
Oh yeah. Phoenix. I will be going to Phoenix next year.
Yes.
And you will be there because your name is Agnes. You'll be sitting lovely at the top of my phone book. So as soon as I get there, I will definitely be in touch.
Yes, absolutely. Is there anything else you would like to add or discuss that perhaps we didn't touch on today?
You know what? I'm happy with the mic drops on this episode. I 2 or 3. So I think we've covered everything. Bottom line to everybody, unconscious negative bias is holding us back. It's not the fact that we're autistic. It's not the fact that we're disordered. It's the fact that you have a bad attitude toward us. Final mic drop.
Oh my God, I've enjoyed this so much. I've laughed and I love laughing. It's good for the soul. So thank you for giving me all those laughing moments in this last hour that we've been chatting. So the best to you. I do look forward to meeting you one day, hopefully in 2022. Continue to motivate and changing lives. It's been Absolutely. A pleasure.
No, you know what? The pleasure was all mine. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed this, especially after a long day of interviews. I feel energized now. I feel like, wah!
I love it. Well, enjoy your evening.
And you have a wonderful rest of your day. And to everybody, just a quick note of thanks to everybody who's listened to this.
Yes, and get that book.
Get it. Loving Your Place in the Spectrum, available at all major online retailers, etc. Google it. You'll see it.
Thank you for listening. Please visit the website at www.leveluptribes.com, and please subscribe to the podcast and share with your family and friends. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. Catch you all next time, my beloved tribes.